What if I told you that building the world's most powerful single data center could consume more energy than an entire continent? What if that single data center was the key to unlocking artificial superintelligence? The return on investment of a mere $1 trillion could forever impact human flourishing for the better. Well, welcome to the concept of a $1 trillion cluster. Before we dive into what this means, let's take a moment to reflect on some of the most ambitious projects in human history and put that investment into perspective. Projects that have pushed the boundaries of what we thought were possible. The CERN Large Hadron Collider was an investment of $7.5 billion. And from that investment, we've enabled scientists to study and understand the universe in novel ways, leading to direct impacts in medicine, environmental science, aerospace, and energy security. The original moonshot program, the Apollo project, took about $315 billion in today's currency to land a man on the moon. And it was monumental, right? It had inspired a nation, inspired the world, and again led to those second-order benefits that have advanced technology and benefited billions. Finally, there's the current effort to decarbonize our global economy. Estimates show that in order to avoid the worst of climate-related impacts to our planet, $4 trillion are needed by the end of this decade to accelerate the transition to renewable energy. This investment's not just an environmental necessity, it's a transformation that will reshape industries, economies, and societies. Now imagine channeling that scale of energy into a single site, a single cluster designed to develop and power artificial superintelligence. Hundreds of millions of AI agents complete with the entirety of human history, reasoning skills, capabilities, working together around the clock, tasked by humans to solve the greatest challenges of our time and in the future. The next moonshot's underway, the race towards artificial superintelligence. The $1 trillion cluster, the computational capacity necessary to bring this moonshot to fruition, would dwarf even the most ambitious endeavors of the past. And today we now explore how the implications of such a project go far beyond its price tag. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, recently talked at Stanford University, and he said that AI will have a greater impact on society than even social media. Now, think about that. I can't think of anything that's more pervasive in our lives than social media. It connects us to others and the world around us. We're in our second generation of digital natives who use social media to connect with each other first, second, and last, and connect with the world around them. And modern social media is only 2 decades old, not even old enough to have a proper pint in the United States. The internet is about half a century old. And during that time, we see that the pace of innovation has increased, not on a linear scale, but on a logarithmic one. The parallel innovation curves in hardware and software have created a flywheel effect, which allows more innovators to accomplish more things in an ever shorter amount of time. Enter the AI era. Everything's going to change. An entirely different dynamic presents itself. Now, disruption is practically the business model of today's internet. But we truly find ourselves at a moment in time and history which will be recognized as singularly unique. Recent key technology breakthroughs in our ability to design computers of incredible power and the resulting philosophical understanding of the software which can make them work have opened up a new door to this entirely new frontier. The AI era is here, and we have great responsibility to both enable and control the resulting power that will be unleashed. Across that last half-century of the internet, we've focused on building networks, technologies, applications, and services for humans. And that incredible rate of innovation was still ultimately bounded by the ability of humans to consume it. I call that an era of eyeball networks, right? An intricate yet resilient concoction designed to connect us and with each other and the world around us. AI changes all of that because in the most fundamental way, all of us will now interact throughout our lives with agents, basically digital humans, that will do all sorts of tasks for us, from the mundane to the fantastic. Agents have already made themselves known to us in small ways. Certainly you're familiar with OpenAI's ChatGPT. It entered the public consciousness only 2 years ago. Perhaps you've used Microsoft's Copilot, which helps you search or design a PowerPoint. Apple and Google are integrating AI into their platforms to help us play and work and communicate. Agents are appearing very fast in all sorts of digital tools, and they promise to ease the cognitive burden of the mundane and the repetitive. So too, agents are appearing in the creative fields. Undoubtedly, you've seen the flood of AI-generated content in your feeds. Now creators can make that content without a soundstage, a set, food, or sleep. We can argue the artistic merits of AI-generated content versus human-generated content, but our lives are going to be filled with both. And this is the Precambrian era of AI. We are just getting started. In the not-so-distant future, we'll be co-working with agents in our professional and our personal lives. Imagine an example where a project manager joins your virtual call and speaks to you in a human, natural voice with quirks. The agent can then take your action items, issue action items, communicate information, update dashboards, not because we've taught it every single step in the process, but because it knows how to do so. Imagine in your personal lives an agent that'll help you book entertainment, travel. It understands your preferences. At the end of the day, it'll small talk with you. Now, I'm a big fan of Marvel movies, and I know this sounds exactly like Tony Stark's Jarvis, right? And I will say, even a year ago, I was not a believer. But in my observation and my research, I know it's going to be true. We see the beginnings of it today. Further, AI will affect our lives in ways that are unseen but entirely present. The world is filled with devices and sensors that throw off vast amounts of spatial data. Think of an electric vehicle that's constantly transmitting information back. It's being processed and can ensure the safety and security of its occupants and passengers around that. Think of the medical field, where the entirety of human history is available to practitioners, leading to vastly improved patient outcomes. Processing this ocean of real-time data into meaningful benefits requires computing horsepower, and a lot of it. And so the eyeball networks of today will give way in scale to the machine networks of the future, because those aren't bounded by our ability to consume them. They're only bounded by our ability to spin up hundreds of millions of agents to put on the task. It could be all too easy to predict the growth curve could become unbounded. Once free of human limits, we're talking about a net new infrastructure over and above today's massive data center investments. Now, current data center workloads will continue to increase, which means that our trillion-dollar data center is really a question of and, not or. You can see then how we have great responsibility to implement this new infrastructure with not only the right capability, but with a view towards a balance of benefits provided versus the impact that it has on our world. The incredible resources needed also inform our existing thinking when it comes to architecture and design. AI is not just about clever algorithms and innovative code. It's now an industrial process. Each new agent we create, multiplied by the number of humans it assists, leads to that explosion of infrastructure. New sources of energy demand construction. New real estate must be devoted. Hardware fabrication facilities must be designed. This is what makes the idea of a trillion-dollar cluster more than a technical challenge, but a sobering industrial and societal challenge. It's an endeavor that requires not just engineering prowess, but a rethinking of how we allocate our most precious resources: energy, capital, and attention. Can we have it all? Can we successfully build a future that allows us to realize the benefits of artificial and superintelligence while providing the utmost care to our world and our fellow man? So just last week, I was moving my oldest son into an apartment in Loudoun County, Virginia. This is known as the center of the internet, Data Center Alley. There are over 300 data centers located in about a 1,300 square kilometer patch. Today's requirements for those data centers are about 3.4 gigawatts of electricity. Future requirements in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, about 8.3 gigawatts of power. Let's call it a 2.5-fold increase in 40 months, right? To understand the scale of 8.3 gigawatts, that represents today's 11% of UK power generation for today. The largest renewable source of energy in the United States is the Grand Coulee Dam in the western United States that produces only 7 gigawatts of electricity. It powers 2 million homes. By 2030, we're on track to build a single data center that consumes 100 gigawatts of electricity. That represents 10% of the current power generation in the United States, the entirety of the United States. It's not just a technical challenge, but a societal one. What could be done with that much power instead? How many homes could be powered? How many hospitals could be powered? How many communities could thrive with access to that power? So the energy demands of a single cluster are so vast that they'll necessitate the construction of entirely new power plants and maybe the repurposing of entire regions. It's not just an engineering challenge. It's an industrial scale transformation that would come with significant opportunity costs. The most urgent of the trade-offs is, of course, the impact on our climate. Today we live in the midst of an energy transition, but the goal of zero hydrocarbons eludes us. The coming wave of energy needs will put significant pressure on our ability to complete that transition. Are there ways we can not only accelerate, but also creatively recapture and reuse today what are wasted byproducts of that cycle? Could we create a closed-loop energy chain which accelerates that transition to renewable energy? Let's also consider the economic trade-offs as we trend towards $1 trillion in total AI investment, $1 trillion by 2027. When we allocate so much capital and energy to a single endeavor, what are we missing? Are we overlooking other innovations, other societal benefits that could benefit from these resources? The same resources that might go into building a $1 trillion data center could be used to accelerate the transition to a low-carbon economy, or they could be directed towards improving healthcare, education, social services in places all over the globe where they are so desperately needed. Research advancements in AI are starting to clearly define that path to artificial superintelligence. It's coming. It's on the horizon. We can just about see it. And the ability for these systems to discover not just incremental benefits, but generational benefits over our knowledge today is real. It could lead to a radical rethinking, if you will, of not just how life flourishes on the planet today, but how all life could flourish in a much better way in the future. So these are the questions that we need to ask ourselves as we consider the idea of a $1 trillion cluster. And the reality is building a single centralized monolithic $1 trillion cluster might not just be impossible, it's probably irresponsible. So let's talk about why that $1 trillion cluster might not be feasible with today's technology. Managing such concentrated energy resources in one place actually challenges the hard limits of our knowledge. The construction techniques, the infrastructure needed, the cooling, the heat exchange, we simply don't know enough to provide the capacity for a single site of that size. Moreover, there's the issue of risk concentration. Centralizing this much computational power in one location creates a single point of failure, whether it's due to natural disasters, cyber attacks, geopolitical tensions. Having that much concentration in one place is a dangerous thing. Sovereignty concerns are also an issue. Regulations around the world around AI are very different. How we propose to use and deploy AI, there's not agreement across the planet. And so can we trust one single actor or nation state to be responsible with that much capacity? Beyond the technical environmental concerns, we also have to consider the societal impact. $1 trillion is a massive financial investment, likely at the expense of other critical needs. We'd be pouring that capital into a single site while potentially neglecting the social services urgently needed in other parts of the world. So it's a question of priorities, ultimately. What kind of future do we want to build? One where resources are very highly concentrated in the hands of just a few, or one where the benefits are spread out among a larger group of people around the planet? So is there an alternative, is the question, to the $1 trillion data center? Instead of a single monolithic data center, imagine a distributed set of capacity around the globe, all linked by high-speed communications networks, each one tapping into the local renewable energy resources which are available. Distributing that just doesn't decentralize the risk, it also has several distinct advantages. By distributing the data centers globally, we can optimize for energy efficiency. Yes, some regions have an abundance of renewable energy. Think of Scotland with their abundance of renewables, or other regions that have abundant low-carbon energy resources. By tapping into these, we can greatly reduce the overall footprint of our computational infrastructure. Regions relying on fossil fuels might be further incentivized then to accelerate their transitions to renewables. This approach also supports local economies. By investing in local economies, those data centers can drive the economy, can drive jobs, can drive growth, and other integrated benefits like the ones that we talk about today with closed-loop energy exchange. supercharging our ability to impact climate change. And instead of concentrating investments and benefits in a single geography, we spread it out, creating more balanced economic impact. These data centers will then require high-speed networks so that we can achieve collective computational power that rivals or even surpasses the largest single-site clusters of our dreams. The federated model allows us to scale up as needed, diffusing the risks and the costs associated with such an approach. And we have a pattern for making this happen. The internet was built on a simple but elegant design pattern, the hourglass. We've built the edges of our communications network to house capacity and intelligence, and we've built the center of our network to pass that very efficiently between sites. Now, a cursory review of the internet might lead you to believe that these capacities are concentrated by big tech in the center part of the internet and distributed around giant regions around the globe. But when we go and unpack that detail, what we see is capacity is actually loaded into businesses and homes and mobile base stations and smaller data centers and, yeah, even your devices. And so connecting all of that capacity together gives us a multiplicative effect. It's the number of things multiplied by the capacity that they have. That's where the power is in our internet. That hourglass design also aligns with our values of resilience, sustainability, and shared prosperity. It builds on the democratic ethos of the internet, power to the individual. It's a model that doesn't just solve the technical challenges of today, but it sets us on a path towards understanding how we might build that future. And we can see that path towards building this distributed data center using federated capacity across the globe. Being connected today is easy, low cost, and ubiquitous. It's an incredible success story of human achievement, and we can reliably draw on these lessons to guide us into the future. Interestingly, this idea, communities of interest, people coming together and connecting through networks for a common goal, was one of the earliest examples was started right here in Soho. The media community formed a network about 25 years ago in order to pass content securely, by creatives securely between sites. And so it's a simple example, yes, but it gives us a design pattern for the future. There's real work to do in creating an advanced communications infrastructure that fully supports this distributed future. I believe that we're positioned to do that, and I think that if you remember what Steve Jobs said, we are all in a position to create our own small dent in the universe. The human spirit is unmatched when rising to the challenges before us. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Those communications networks that I propose themselves consume power. But efficiency advancements in everything from chip fabrication to heat recovery allow us to provide generational benefits that today keep pace with our needs, and researchers continue to work aggressively in these domains to search for order of magnitude gains. At Nokia, we invest heavily in the frontiers of communications across all domains of connectivity, optics, routing and switching, mobile networks, broadband fiber networks. Research and innovation is at the forefront. My colleagues at Bell Labs work very hard on technologies like quantum computing and photonics research. It's world-class. The inventions that they've presented have benefited billions across the globe over the last century. We spent a great deal of time at Nokia on product integration as well. One of the biggest energy culprits in today's network equipment is actually the microscopic traces that run through all of the equipment that you have. Individually, they consume a very small amount of power, but there are literally trillions of them in a data center, and so collectively they consume energy and they produce a lot of heat. So we focus quite a bit on how to reduce that problem set. Innovations needed in the field of photonics as well. In 1948, a guy named Claude Shannon at Bell Lab created modern information theory. He has a mathematical formula which says how much you can transmit over any given medium. And it's held true through later innovations in fiber optics and modern wireless. And today we're at the very limits of what we can do with a piece of fiber optic or an electrical cable. So we spend a lot of time looking at how we improve the communications media themselves. New fiber extrusion processes, for example, or parallelization of communications over media. These areas of scientific advancement are also met with innovative software, which is a critical part of enabling the hardware underneath. You need to be able to deploy systems intelligently and efficiently using installed capacity. $1 trillion data center will have many, many tenants. each of which demand privacy and optimization of their workloads. Intelligent design needs great software to fully realize its potential. Which brings us full circle. What if unlocking artificial superintelligence gave us the ability to unlock even greater scientific benefit? So as we move forward, we must be mindful of the choices that we make. The trillion-dollar cluster is a captivating idea, yes, but it also represents a crossroads. Do we pursue the path of centralization with all of its inherent risks? Or do we explore a more sustainable, distributed future that benefits more all over? These questions won't be answered by today's AI. The responsibility to think through these problems and act on them rests with us. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle. AI has reached escape velocity, and our future depends on the great minds and capable hands to make the right choices to control this transformational technology. I believe that we can rise to that challenge and have the greatest impact on human flourishing. The future of AI is not just about what we can build, it's about how we choose to build it. We have the opportunity to shape a future where technology serves the broader good, where innovation is balanced with sustainability, and where progress is shared by all. How will we here today, then, respond to the chaos and disruption ahead? Well, I'm inspired by the words of Keats, who said, "Do you not see how necessary a world of pains and troubles it is to school an intelligence and make it a soul?" My charge to you today is that the solution to these urgent problems lies within our collective abilities, or should I say our distributed collective abilities. Thank you.